Tonight we will go deep into the realm of the unknown and question everything as we search for the truth. We will explore the possibility of countless phenomena within the ultraspectrum, and together we will learn that it is all connected. This podcast is brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association, and it is a live stream broadcast. If you have a question, send me a super chat or become a YouTube member. This podcast is brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association. Take a seat, relax, get ready, and welcome to Beyond the TinFoil Hat.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Beyond the TinFoil Hat. Today is Thursday, August 18, 2022, and I, Ryan Stacey, am your host this evening. I'm a licensed private investigator, citizen journalist, and the director of investigations for the Experiencers Support Association. I'm the former national chief investigator for MUFON Canada and the former international field investigator trainer for MUFON in general. Welcome to the channel, and thank you for joining us this evening. Super chat, click the $ next to your name in the comment box below. Tonight's theme is space-time metrics, time travel, and anomalies. This is going to be interesting because these are the things that I have a hard time wrapping my head around, but I've always been fascinated with time travel. I have a hard time with it, but we're going to get into it. Our guest for Season 4, Episode 27 is Micheal Boyd. Micheal E. Boyd is a physicist, engineer, and archaeologist. In 1985, Mr. Boyd received his Bachelor of Science degree in physics at UCSB. Mr. Boyd began his career as an engineer-scientist starting in 1982 at Hughes Aircraft Company and Santa Barbara Research Center. His career has a span component manufacturing, development, engineering, and the medical device, microelectronics, telecommunication, semiconductor, and hard drive industry. Micheal has published his research in technical publications, including the International Society for Optical Engineering, SPIE, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, and the Journal of Vacuum Science Technology, and the Society for California Archaeology. Mr. Boyd received an AA in Anthropology in 2019 and an AS in Construction Management in 2021 from Cabrillo College in Aptos, California. He began working as an archaeologist in 2017. Mr. Boyd has 3 United States patents on the world's first space-time metrics engineering device called the mass spin valve or gravitational rectifier. It's a type of gravitational diode. Mr. Boyd is a member of the International Society for Optics and Photonics, SPIE, the Society for California Archaeology, and the Santa Cruz Archaeology Society. You can find a copy of Mr. Boyd's CV in the description below. It's also in the banner here if you're interested in looking at that. All right, so Micheal, put on your tinfoil hat. We're about to go down a rabbit hole. How are you doing this evening?
Good. We don't wear tinfoil. We wear hard hats in my job.
Hard hats. Well, you do the real job. Real stuff.
Well,
sorry.
I'll hit my head too. So archaeologists are always looking down. So
okay, no, that's true. That's true. I'm just trying to fix my. Okay, that's good. That's better. Just gonna make the screen a little bit bigger so I can see it. Perfect. Here we go. All right. So as always, what we're going to do is we're going to start with an icebreaker question. So this icebreaker question is prepared by Cece. I don't get to see it until now, and I'm going to ask that question after I play our little jingle here, and then we'll get into the show. All right, so Micheal, what are your thoughts around the physics of consciousness?
I think that we'll get into that tonight in more detail. But I'm going to be talking a little bit about my invention, which I basically found in this component in your computer called a hard disk drive. And essentially, my thought is that consciousness is something it's kind of like a, you can when when you die, there's a magnetic signature of your consciousness that carries on. And I actually think that death is a human construction, kind of like race, gender, those type of things. It's a social construct, something we create as human beings. And so I actually did a paper, or not a paper, the Bigelow Institute for Consciousness Studies, I think it was last year, they had this contest, an essay writing contest. And I submitted an essay to that. I didn't win anything, but basically what I think happens is when death isn't the end, okay, and something's left over, and perhaps what's going on is like we're reincarnated or something like that, is my thought. That so basically I'll go into more detail I'm sure later, but
Okay.
In any case, that's my thoughts. I think consciousness is space-time physics is something natural. It's something that like when we see the Tic Tac, for example, a video of the Tic Tac UAP, the Nimitz Tic Tac, that's obviously something artificial going on there.
Mm-hmm.
But there's other things that are in our like brain that are natural things like DNA. I think life. I think basically the universe is alive, like we are, and that it's conscious, and that we're all interconnected at the subatomic level, and that you and me are the same life, looking at ourselves subjectively when we're awake. When we're asleep, that's different. And I think that all living things are conscious and interconnected. So if the universe is conscious, obviously you and me are conscious. Why not? What evidence do we have otherwise? It's something we really haven't measured yet, except for things like ghosts. And I've actually seen ghosts. I actually took some photographs of a ghost, and I saw a photograph of my grandfather's ghost. And I'll talk, if you would want me to I'll
Sure.
go into more detail about that. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm curious though, does that make me an experiencer because I've seen a ghost?
Well, so for me, like the Experiencer Sport Association, like is you experience something. So like an experience is simply having something affect you or being witness to something that affects something else. It's an experience. Trauma is an experience, things like that too. So the by definition, you would be an experiencer if you had seen something. And for the context, our experiencer support is for those within the realm of paranormal consciousness or UFO. So something that has experienced something that is not normal. So if you've experienced a ghost, then yeah, by definition, I would say you're an experiencer, which means you are somewhere in that spectrum of consciousness that provides you the ability to see things that some people can't see. And that's something that we're measuring here with the ultra spectrum, pardon me.
So is there like a network of people, or is it just like a local thing where you
are? Well, it can be both, I think. I think it depends. Like local, depends on how you're looking at it. So if it's local, then we're looking at the physical, right in front of you, what you can touch, what you can see, where you can go. As far as the network goes, we need to understand where our mind goes and the conscious connection, and whether I'm, how do we measure whether or not I'm consciously connecting to you right now in another place and time? Because I know you're on Pacific, you're on West Coast, I'm on East Coast. And so I think it would have to be about both depending on our focus.
Well, I was thinking more of a utilitarian of like, I need a medium, for example, someone who's a medium. And I've looked, but someone who's a medium so basically what I would like is someone to go look at where this ghost is. Essentially, that I know where this ghost is, that I took the picture of. I took 2 pictures of it 6 months apart. So
okay. So you can make for us in specific to help you out, you can make a report through our reporting system. So actually,
okay.
Our website up here, if you just go to experienceyoursupport.org and let me just blow that up. Doesn't seem to be up there anymore. Well, submit a report right there at the top. Okay. So if you click that, you can fill out a report, and then you can answer all those questions, and that'll kind of start the process of that.
Awesome.
Operationally speaking, as far as having someone physically go to the location, I mean, it's possible. However, the way I run my investigations is I like to use the experiencer, because the experiencer is witness to it, and the experiencer usually has access to the things. So as an investigator, it's important for me to know what evidence is available, what could be found, what questions I have, and how to answer them. So I could travel halfway across the world to get the answers myself, but that would cost a lot of money.
That's not what I was doing.
But if the experiencer who makes a report was willing to work with me, as long as I know what needs to be obtained, I could guide you into collecting that for me in a virtual format. And of course, we need to make sure it's safe. I'm not going to lead you into, if it's a ghost, we got to look at the safeties around.
Yeah. Now this is a happy ghost. It's a happy ghost.
Well, there are some ghosts that aren't happy. So
it's
we got to look at their. Is his name Casper? Casper, friendly ghost?
Well, it's not Casper. Her name's Martina Castro.
Okay.
She used to own the land here. She was a wealthy woman. She lived before the Mexican-American War, and she owned SoCal, Rancho SoCal, it was called, the area where I live, and it's like it's like huge, like 20,000 acres or something, and it's like up this mountain. She owns this mountain that I'm at the bottom of, but she lost her land because in 1848, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo was signed, and then in 1850, California became a state. And in Mexico, California was part of Mexico, and it was a state in Mexico. The southern part was called Baja California, and the northern part was called Alta California. Okay, and it was like Baja California in Mexico, that was part of the state, and the issue was that in Mexico, women could own property, but in America they were property. So when essentially when it became part of America, that meant that the women couldn't represent themselves in court. So people would try and steal their land. So she had to hire lawyers and stuff and fight in the federal court for 35 years and just pretty much sold off everything. So she was an unhappy person. All her pictures, she doesn't have a smile. And when what happened is this Adobe that she used to own, it got a grant from the state of California for $2 million and was refurbished. And it's like it was in its original state, only earthquake proof. And so that's why I think the ghost is happy. You follow? Mm-hmm. That's the backstory.
So has this ghost communicated this information to you? Like how are you gathering?
Oh,
'Cause
well,
you've seen something.
so I'm an archaeologist, okay,
Mhm.
and part of archaeology is doing you study the history of what happened here before. Like Monterey, California was the state capital of California when it was in Mexico.
Right.
And so there's all this history, and then there's all these old records that I look at. So like if I'm going to go survey a property, I have to go to the Northwest Information Center and get all the old maps, and if any other archaeology sites were nearby, they'll send me all that information. And then that goes in the report when I do. So I do a survey. What I do is I walk around and I look for stuff on the ground.
Mhm.
Now, sometimes we find stuff, and somebody say they're going to put in an accessory dwelling unit on their where their property is. And when I did the survey, I found some stuff. Well, then they have to have me monitor it. You follow?
Mhm.
And so basically, I get to look at all those records as part of my job.
Right.
Okay, and so that's how I got the information. Found all the history, and there's a lot of like books and stories about this lady, what happened to her.
Okay.
It's just like she's a historic figure, but it's like tragic, right?
So how do you know that this ghost that you've seen is that lady? How did you connect
The picture, it looks like her, but she's smiling.
that? Oh, okay. So you have a historical record to compare to. So you've taken that photo, and when did you take the photos?
Oh, it's years ago. I'll put the report in. I promise. I mean, I have a signed and notarized what do you call it? Declaration. It's called, so a legal declaration. That's what part of the thing with the Bigelow Institute for Consciousness Studies is you had to provide evidence that you could defend in court.
Yeah.
So that's basically what I did, provided in that format. So in any case,
So you provided the pictures of this ghost in an affidavit format, like a notarized?
yeah,
And they accepted it into the court?
yeah, sure.
Well, like sure, like are you confident in that? Like they did take it, it was admissible, like they allowed it as
They
evidence?
accepted it. They didn't say anything was wrong with it. I don't know.
Interesting. Yeah, I'd love to see that. That's interesting.
Yeah, I'll send you the whole thing if you want. What it is it's the essay plus the plus the declaration, the legal declaration that's signed in
It's good supporting evidence too, right? Like you
right.
Right. Okay. So I have your presentation queued up here. Did you want to start with that?
Sure. Go ahead and put the first slide up, please.
Okay, perfect. Awesome.
So what it's saying there is what is inside a hard drive, disk drive assembly. So this is the picture on the right there. That's kind of what it looks like if you take the lid off your hard disk in your computer. And you see there's this disk, and then there's this like little arm thing. That little arm is called the actuator. And then sitting on if you look on the left, there's like a picture of what's called the head assembly. Okay, and there's this little tiny sensor that goes on the end of that actuator arm. It's called the read write head, and below the disk drive picture, you can see the merged read write head. And on the left there's this like looks like a little wall there. That's a thing called a giant magnetoresistor. It's not giant, it's actually really tiny. You couldn't even see it, but it's called giant magnetoresistor because it's really sensitive to changes in magnetic fields. So if you slip, and this is, there's like a magnetic bit written on the surface of the disk that your computer hard drive reads those little bits of data back with this little read sensor.
Right.
And that's the secret sauce to gravitational induction, which is what I'm measuring, is gravitational. Gravity has induction like magnetic induction, but magnetic induction is at the interaction time between the little sensor and the surface of the disk is at the speed of light for magnetic induction, but for gravitational induction, it's not. It's actually normally slower than, and that's what causes what's called frame dragging. So if you go to the next slide, we'll look at this. This is a view of the disk drive, where on the right there, the little actuator arm has the head. It's called a 50% slider. It's called a slider because it looks kind of like a sled. And then if you look over on the disk on the left side, you see that on the radius, I microfabricated these little nano bumps and nano pits. And they're going like from 1 micron squared, which is 1 times 10 to the minus 6 meters, times 1 times 10 to the minus 6 meters, that's the little square, up to 40 microns times 40 micron bumps and pits. Okay, and then below the disk there's a little cross-sectional view of what's on the disk, the magnetic recording disc. There's a little film of where the magnetic, what's called magnetic media. It's only about a micron thick. It's not very thick. And then on the left of that little view of what's in the disk, there's a cross-sectional view of the device, and you see the little slider that looks like a sled, and there's a nano bump on the surface of the disk below that little slider. So now if you go to the next slide, please. So now what I have here is an image of a nano bump and a nano pit that is 10 micron square. And this is a 3D image that's made with a device called an atomic force microscope. And it can actually measure atomic orbitals on stuff. And so if you look at the image of the like nano pit, and you'll see that it's got like texture on it. Mm-hmm. That's because it can see really tiny. Okay. And the nano pit that I made is 52 nanometers deep. It looks deep in the picture, but it's not really that deep. 52 nanometers. The bump on the right, it's 32 nanometers. Now, this gives us the context of space-time metrics engineering. So what we have here is we have this sensor that's sitting still. It's like hanging over, and then the disk is spinning counterclockwise under it. And as this little nano pit goes under the magnetic field sensor, there's like an expanded space-time, okay? And then the medium so basically what you're having is a change in the space-time medium from matter space to empty space for 52 nanometers. Now, when the nano bump on the right goes under, basically the space-time gets closer. It's basically denser in that region. And that's why we call it denser space-time. So go ahead, you can go to the next one. So it looks like the text got a little garbled here. But gravitation is slower than the speed of light in the context of frame drag. Now, as I was saying before, our disk is spinning counterclockwise. So on the left there, that first pulse, that's caused by the nanobump as it goes over the edge of the nanobump. The magnetic field switches 90 degrees, and that causes that first pulse there on the left. And then on the other side of the broader pulse, or the gravitational induction pulse, is the other edge of the defect when it goes down. When it goes, the nanobump goes down, there's another sharp angle there where the magnet, and that's occurring at the speed of light. Now, the novel thing is that broad peak after that first electromagnetic pulse, that's the gravitational induction signal. Okay, and so you go to the next one, please.
Okay.
So the presence of matter moving produced a pull force. So what I did now, here I have the little cross section of the device again, and you can see there that there's our gravitational induction signal, or our GMR as we call it. That signal's on the right below the cross section. And there's a little arrow that points up to the position on the slider on the right there. That's where that little GMR sensor goes. So, and then what I did is I put on the back of the slider that little green thing, and what that is it's a crystal of what's called a piezoelectric material. And what a piezoelectric material is something where it's a type of crystal where if you tap it, it makes a voltage signal come out. Or if you take a voltage and you apply it to it, it wiggles. Now, quartz is an example of this. And quartz crystal oscillators are, one of the earliest radios were made with quartz crystal oscillators. So essentially, it's a piezoelectric device. So what I put that on there is because it can detect a physical force. In this case, on the left of the signal below the cross section on the left, which shows all those wiggly lines there, that's actually the signal, and that's a undampened force. So basically, it's pulling it down and it's going boing like a spring force. Okay, and that's how I know it was pulling.
Okay.
Because you see the force of gravity is down. If you look at the cross section on the cross-sectional view of the device, you'll see it says Earth gravity, and it's pointing down. So it's pulling it down against gravity, and that's why it goes boing like a spring.
Right.
Okay. Now the thing is, in your hard drive, when there's a magnetic bit on there, it doesn't physically move the head assembly. It doesn't move the slider. It doesn't pull on it. It's only the bumps that are actually pulling on it in a way that I can detect it. And this is a non-contact thing, so it never touches the sensor. You follow? So in any case, let's go to the next slide.
Okay.
And now here we have that same nano pit that I showed you in the atomic force image. You look on you look on the right. The absence of matter moving produced a push force and a positive polarity gravitomagnetism. So you can see it's a push force because when you look at the piezoelectric signal on the left, you can see it's dampened. So it's like pushing up against gravity, and then it comes back down, and it doesn't go boing like the bump pulls. You follow?
Yeah.
So that's basically when I discovered anti-gravity force.
Okay.
It's produced by the absence of matter moving. Okay, so would you go to the next slide, please? So now in the semiconductor world, we have what's called a rectifier or a diode. And what a diode does is it allows you to push current it limits current one way and allows you to push. So in one sense, when you like forward bias a diode, you want to produce a lot of current, but not a lot of voltage. And when you reverse bias a diode, it lets you produce a high voltage with a low current. And that's basically the benefit of that. Now, what I discovered is that when I plotted out my variable area pits and bumps, I discovered I had the diode curve, and that it scaled with a nanogravity force, and in newtons, as measured in newtons. And so the x-axis, which is in the middle there, that's the measured force of gravity in nanonewtons from the nano bump in the nano pit. So you can see on the left is the bump side, and it's called gravitational induction because it pulls. And then on the right side is the anti-gravitational induction. Now, I don't know if you can see the numbers up there, but there's equations that were derived from this. And you'll note that the bump pull force is a parabolic force like normal gravity is. But the anti-gravity force is a hyperbolic force. So instead of x squared, it's x cubed. Follow? So instead of so acceleration is distance squared over time squared. The force of anti-gravity is not like that. It's distance cubed over time cubed. And that's a balloon-like force. So think about a balloon. It's strong at the membrane, but weak in the middle. And so what I have here is the other thing I was going to point out in semiconductors, they have what's called the p-type side, or the acceptor side, and then on there's the gravitational induction is the n-type. So it goes it's similar to semiconductor diode, but instead of using current and voltage, it's using volume and force. Okay, so would you go to the next slide, please? Now, gravitation, actually, there is an example where it's faster than the speed of light, and my little GIF isn't working for some reason.
Well, it's because it's a slide. I can pull up the slide a different way if you need it to move. Do you need it to move?
Oh, well, it makes more sense if it moves. Yeah.
Okay, just give me a second here, and then I'll fix that for you. This is the built-in feature for.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's something.
Just bring it up here. So I'm just gonna. Bring that up here. We'll do it this way. Share the screen.
There you go. Cool. Thank you. I appreciate that. So gravitation is.
All right, just trying to make it bigger for everyone. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Okay, quantum tunneling shows how particles such as electrons differ from bigger things. Throw a ball at the wall and it bounces backwards. Let it roll to the bottom of a valley and it stays there. But a particle will occasionally hop through the wall. In 1962, physicist Thomas Hartmann found that a barrier seemed to act as a shortcut. When a particle tunnels, the trip takes less than if the barrier wasn't there. Even more astonishing, he calculated that thickening a barrier hardly increases the time it takes for the particle to tunnel across it. This means that with a sufficiently thick barrier, particles could hop from one side to the other faster than light traveling the same distance through empty space would go. So, and when I worked for Hughes back in the 80s, I worked on these things called tunnel diodes. So this quantum tunneling's been around for 50 years. So it's a known phenomena. So it's an example of going faster than the speed of light. And that basically there's a pre-signal, and that's important to the concept of time travel. So would you go to the next slide, please? Thank you.
So I'm going to bring up the original format that I had, and then the next time
That's
you
fine.
need, if there's another
image, could you do this one too?
This one moves as well.
Well, no, it doesn't, but the type's getting messed up.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, so let me. It's just I can't go full screen here, so I'm hoping our audience can read that too. But you can read it well then.
I can read that better. Actually, no, you're probably right. That one's better. Let's go back to yours.
Yeah, so it just sorry about that. We don't have time to prep it. Just load it in like that.
Okay, so basically, there's this guy, Harold Howe Puthoff. He worked on remote viewing. He worked for SRI. He's a theoretical physicist, and he wrote this paper, Advanced Space Propulsion Based on Vacuum Spacetime Metrics Engineering. And I have the article title, and then there's a link down there for if somebody wants to download it, they could do that. So assume you'll see he's showing some of the theory, but metric effects on physical processes in an altered spacetime is interpreted by a remote, unaltered spacetime observer. And that's what we're going to be looking at. And essentially, earlier I was talking about denser spacetime and expanded spacetime when I was showing the nano bump and the nano pit. So basically, his hypothesis is that in denser spacetime, time dilates, length shrinks, and it's a gravitational spacetime. And expanded spacetime, time shrinks, length dilates, and it's anti-gravitational. And then this is table 1 out of his paper. And he's showing this like G00 and G11. So what that is G00, assume G00 equals 1 standard time and G11 equals 1 standard length at sea level. So because if you go out into space, obviously time is different, right?
Right.
And the length is different too. So now his table here, he's showing the variable is mass here. In the middle is typical stellar mass. And then to the right, he's talking about this, what we call space-time engineered metric, or this expanded space-time. So when you get near a stellar mass, the time interval processes, e.g. clocks, run slower. The frequency of light red shifts towards lower frequencies. Energy states are lowered when you're in when you're close to the stellar mass. The velocity of light is less than c, and the effective mass increases. So when you're closer to the star, your effective mass is greater. And this is a gravitational force. Now, in this expanded space-time, this engineered, he calls it space-time engineered metric, processes, e.g. clocks, run faster. So time goes faster in expanded space-time. Blue shifts towards the higher frequencies. Energy states raise. Objects, e.g. rulers, expand. And effective velocity is greater than c. And effective mass decreases, and it's anti-gravitational pushy force. And there's a little picture of Hal there in the slide, if you see there. And he did this little video on YouTube, if people want to look, of harmful space-time metric engineering consequences, it's called. And so, but yeah, so basically what I started reading his papers, and it seemed to fit very well with my data. So would you go to the next slide, please? So I was exploring time travel in a discussion with Hal. Let's assume the speed of light is our fixed time reference, with a gravitational interaction time being our variable. With expanded space-time, time shrinks, length dilates. So an anti-gravitational pre-signal would be expected. And we observed that effect from our 10 micron by 10 micron square nanopit, as shown. And you can see there's a little like a mini-me of the signal there. You see that? From the actual, from the data, okay? And then you'll see that first magnetic induction spike where I've labeled it T equals 0. Notice that pre-signal is way before that magnetic. So effectively, it appears to be going faster than the speed of light. To a non-expanded space-time observer, objects moving in an expanded space-time appear to exceed the speed of light. Go to the next slide, please. Likewise, with denser space-time, now we're looking at our nanobump. And time dilates, length shrinks, so a post-signal would be expected, and we observed that effect for our 10 micron by 10 micron square nanobump. You see the post-signal there? Mm-hmm. And it's after, so it's slower. Next slide, please. Now this needs to be your other thing, because the GIF isn't working.
Okay, give me 1 second.
I think the next 4 slides. So now what I have here is I'm showing these space-time metric engineering effects from the Tic Tac. And these are what are called general relativity effects, because you can see the effects in what's called the far field around it. Oh yeah, that's good. So So that's awesome, dude. Thank you. Greater g-force means time dilates, length shrinks, gravitational energy, while lower g-force means time shrinks, length dilates, anti-gravitational energy. This is based on the principles of general relativity, Einstein's theory of geometric gravitation, and the data. And we're looking at some of the data. So now the next slide, I'm going to describe what we're seeing. So just go to the next slide. Okay, we need to shrink that down a little, please.
Is there a video on this one or no?
No. You can go to.
So I'll go back to this one then.
Okay, there you go.
That work? Okay.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So I'm defining these general relativity features, and I'm comparing it to what we talked about earlier with Hal's paper, Hal Puthoff's paper. Now, first, let's start on the left here. There's a dark torus-shaped balloon rotated counterclockwise above the UAP. Appears cooler on the infrared than the other regions. Under Puthoff's hypothesis, expanded spacetime. And this is what I call an anti-gravity balloon. Notice it's the P side of the gravity diode. It's above it. It looks just like a balloon, and and notice it's like a balloon force. It's like strong at the membrane, but there's no strength in the middle. Now there's these other dark regions to the left of the UAP under Puthoff's hypothesis. This is also expanded spacetime, the P side. And then there's a small dark oval-shaped balloon rotating to the clockwise and below the UAP. Okay, and I'm going to describe the stuff on the left. Okay, starting at the top, we have our tic-tac shaped UAP, and then below that, or to the right of it, a balloon-shaped brighter region to the right of the UAP is warmer on the IR sensors. Under Puthoff's hypothesis, denser in the lighter balloon, the N side of the gravity diode. And then there's this other balloon region below that. It's brighter region with moving darker regions to the right, and under the UAP is a warmer on the IR sensor. Appears as what I call gravitomagnetism generation and recombination region. It's where basically the anti-gravity and the gravitational fields interact with each other. Okay, now I think I need to go to that other view, Ryan, if that's okay, because it's a GIF. Would you go back to the previous slide to do that?
Oh, the previous slide?
Yeah, there you go. That one there. Go ahead and run it. So now, looking at this, you can see what's going on with my description on the next slide. You can actually see what I'm talking about. You can see the little balloon features. It's kind of cool, I think. So, okay, so now skip the next slide and go to the one after, please.
Is that a video as well, or?
Yeah, that's a GIF. There you go. That's working. So now, above the UAP, it's okay. You can. Above the UAP is the anti-gravity balloon. The left of the image is where a wormhole is open, and the right side of the UAP is where the UAP is space-time engineering a gravitational bow, like in a bow and arrow, where the UAP is the arrow. The video shows the arrow being released, aka warp drive. So essentially, that puppy's taken off really fast, and if you watch it, you'll notice the little balloon disappears at a certain point when it starts gone. Once it's gone, it disappears. And so the title above there's the warp drive is using what's called special relativity effects, which are different. It's not a gravitational, it's actually using acceleration. Special relativities basically changed the laws of physics to apply for close to the speed of light. So the next slide, please, is also a GIF.
Okay.
Oh no! Oh, that's fine. Just leave that there. So basically, what I noticed is that if you watch the Tic Tac video, you'll notice that the Tic Tac's going in these little loops, and so it's using that to create an angular acceleration. So as the angular velocity is not constant using this little loop-to-loop, there's an angular acceleration in which the acceleration changes, and basically it's going positive, and that's a part of, kind of reminds me of Back to the Future. Remember, the DeLorean would get up to, what was it, 88 miles an hour in 1.1.
Yeah, if we don't get this up 88 miles per hour, Doc, we're not going to make it. Marty McFly here.
Exactly.
We're good.
So and so what's going on here is, if you think about it, we're think about the barrier, the quantum tunneling, where we're going into the barrier. Well, the expanded space-time medium is just like that, but you're going the opposite direction. When you go towards the matter, you're going to the past. When you're going away from the matter, like into outer space, you're going towards the future. Okay, so now let's go to the next slide, please.
Interesting. This is a video here? Yeah.
Yep. So now what's going on here is, it looks like the Tic Tac is hitting the Nimitz aircraft with a electromagnetic pulse. And the reason I say that is, you see how it lights up there? At the end, it's like, it gets all bright, and you can see these like little lines, kind of like showed up on a TV screen, an old CRT. What's going on there? So when I worked for Hughes, I made these infrared sensors. And there's this readout that the sensor sits on this readout. Okay. And the readout, that's the pattern of the readout. And what's going on is the Nimitz hits it. That's showing up in the infrared. And then when it lights up, that means that somehow a current got through that sensor to the readout and heated it up so that it swamped out the detector. So it kind of makes me feel uncomfortable, like it's not a nonviolent interaction between the two. You follow? Mm-hmm. And so basically, I just wanted to show that because it's kind of interesting.
It is interesting. I just want to add to that, like the Nimitz is an aircraft carrier, so just to be specific.
Yeah, it's the aircraft.
The naval vessel. It's still a vessel, but it carries aircraft. It's not the Nimitz is not an aircraft. But
No, I agree.
It carries the aircraft.
It's an F-18 is what it was. So.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so next slide, please.
I think
that's the last one, isn't it?
That is the last slide.
There you go. So basically, that's. Any questions?
There's no questions in the comments, but I'm just trying to, I'm paying attention to that as it's the first time I've seen an analysis like that too, and it's interesting. So I do see the bubbles as you described it. So your hypothesis, I guess yours piggybacked off of Hal Puthoff's hypothesis, as I'm understanding it,
right?
Is that the Tic Tac object may be using some sort of anti-gravitational force to travel through time forward because it's moving away from those balloons. That's
moving. It's moving into expanded space-time.
Into expanded space-time.
So, like when you go from the Earth into orbit, you're going into expanded space-time.
Okay.
If you go from the atmosphere, say, into water, you're going to denser space-time. It's a medium. When you change a medium.
Right.
So it's kind of like, black holes. Everybody says, oh, well, if you fall into a black hole, you're going to get spaghettified or something. Okay. But it's not. It's just the opposite is true. If it's kind of like if you want to dance in a hurricane, you have to stand in the eye.
So that would suggest that this object has traveled from our time to the future. And if it's traveling from our time to the future, it would have to know that the future exists and how to get there, which then would suggest that it came from the future. So
it could go to the past too. But
so they literally went back to the future.
Back to the future.
Get it? All right. So we'll pause right here, but we'll continue after a message from our sponsors. If you're listening to the audio only version, head over to youtube.com /the Experience Support Association to see the video that goes with this audio. You are listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat, a podcast by the Experience Support Association, and we'll be back in about 5 minutes.
It's your business. It's your property. Your assets are worth protecting. Blacklight Investigative and Surveillance Services specializes in patrolling and inspecting residential or commercial property against fire, theft, vandalism, terrorism, and illegal activity. People and buildings are monitored to prevent crime. Keep your property, your people, and your assets safe from threat. Our elite staff are dual licensed private investigators and security guards. Blacklight Investigative and Surveillance Services. Go to blacklightiss.com.
The same thing that draws aliens to our planet is the same thing that draws us to others. Exploration, curiosity, sustainability of life. That's why we go. It would make sense as to why they're visiting here.
Travis! Quit playing around, man. Get back here. Travis!
The last thing I remember was this numbing shock. Stunning sort of a feeling. Very powerful.
Get away from me!
I was just out of my mind with fear, just screaming the whole time.
It's been theorized that aliens prefer remote areas because they don't want to attract attention. Whatever it is that they're doing, they would want to do that in a less populated area. There are multiple accounts of the same thing from people from all over the world. People that do not know each other, do not live in the same cultures, and they're all looking up, they're all seeing things in the sky. So it would be naive of us to think that
Ryan is one of Canada's leading new UFO investigators. He conducts and oversees UFO investigations on a constant basis and was really taken by his research. He's compiled a tremendous amount of data regarding UFOs in Canada. And just as interesting, he really goes over how UFO investigations are done and what are some of the mistakes that people make when they submit evidence. Note for starters, don't edit your videos or photos before you send them. If you want to hear more follow-up conversation between Ryan and myself, you can go to richardolanmembers.com where we have a candid conversation on ufology, the paranormal, and more. And remember, while we learn and grow and search for the truth, let's be good to each other.
Welcome to the Observation Deck, a state-of-the-art, one-of-a-kind virtual platform that takes video conferencing to the next level by using avatars to navigate a campus, just like you would in real life. First, you install the application and design your very own unique avatar. Then you're free to explore the various areas of the campus at any time from anywhere. There's so many areas and activities to choose from on the platform. There's a 1,000-seat auditorium, a large expo hall, a movie theater, a nightclub, an art gallery, and even a beach. Come attend a conference or take a class or hear a lecture. Meet new friends and interact directly with presenters. It's all right here on the incredible Observation Deck campus. Where in the world will you go?
Have you ever wondered, or maybe just thought to yourself, if there were others just like you? You know, people with extraordinary abilities, psychogenic advancement, and perhaps unique intuitions. Maybe you just wondered if there were other people who experienced unimaginable, unexplained, or even unusual and paranormal events. Are there people who have more questions, more fears than answers? Well, you're not alone. You've never been alone. We believe you. Sign up for EA today by going to tesacan.org/EA. That's TESACAN.org/EA. All right, welcome back. Welcome back. You're listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. Have you ever experienced an unexplained event involving the paranormal, UFO, extraterrestrials, dogman, or any other paracryptid? Head over to our website, which is over here, www.experienceyoursupport.org, and submit a report all the way to the top right there. This is our visual evidence database, by the way. But the others who have all here, be that example that proves that we are making a difference. And if it wasn't for these reports, we would not be able to do what we do. And for that, we thank you. And if you're wondering where I got a hat like this I'm wearing today, please visit www.tinfoilcap.co. Every purchase made goes to support the LEAK project. So thank you, Rex Bear, for this Marty McFly style hat, which happens to be the theme tonight, which is great. I'm pretty proud of that pun at the end there, but nobody seemed to laugh at that. So, I try to think I'm funny there, but I try to set that up real good. But I'm glad you got it.
Riding the wave.
That's right. So, okay. I know there's some videos that you share with me too, and before we get into those, we might not, but I don't want to take away from what you just presented. So I kind of want to ask some questions around that, just to stay within the frame of that, if that's okay.
Sure.
So we obviously know that you think time travel is possible based on these calculations.
I think I've measured it.
Okay. So is it possible that there's been any manipulations in timelines, like the Mandela effect? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, are you talking about time paradox? You mean like
so they travel back?
Like
it changes everything.
Marty was worried about dating his mom.
But that also affects something. That's like the butterfly effect, I guess. Like you do one thing to do all those other things. So, what is your thought on the Mandela effect in terms of things just being deleted from existence that we remember happening in relation to time travel?
Yeah, I think that like I said, there's a signature. There's a magnetic signature that's basically you can't erase it. Kind of like in your hard drive, people, their hard drives will crash, or they'll, like detectives, forensic people in IT will like go in, like the FBI will go in and take someone's computer and say they erase some stuff on their hard drive. They take it to this special company that then can unerase it. because there's a remnant magnetic signal left. Even when you erase your hard drive, there's still a little like a little magnetic pattern left there that can be restored. And basically that's what consciousness is. Consciousness, I've heard people say, oh, it's the Akashic record. They give different names to it. But what I think it is it's just this, it's gravitomagnetism. Everything's got a signature. And that signature is permanent. It's like on your permanent record. You have a permanent record that's not erasable.
Okay, so you know what's interesting about that too? This is often a theory that I've had too. And well, it's not really a theory. It's just this is the thing I was always having trouble with when I mentioned at the beginning on how time travel could be possible, and it kind of touched on it a little bit, but maybe you can expand on it. But I always thought that in order to travel, like I can understand traveling perhaps in the future or slowing down, time, so that way it appears that you're moving slower, maybe moving into the future, maybe the future doesn't exist, or going back in the past. But in order to go to those places, there would have to be a database that stores that information. So the concept, like the analogy or the parallel that I would always use to describe time, to me that made sense to my neophyte mind there, is that if you record this video, for an example, this is present, but as it's being recorded, it's being stored on our YouTube channel. To go back in time would be to go and watch it in present, to go back and see it, but it has been recorded. To go into the future, that's a little bit more complicated, but in order to go back in time to see something that's already happened, it had to have been recorded. So if we go back in this space and time to the past, what is responsible for recording all this data? Where is that being housed? What machine is this?
Well, it's like I said, the universe is conscious too.
Right.
And we got to look at it from both sides. Have you ever heard of the term offset spatial divergence?
Nope.
To travel in time is to travel in space. Okay. So an example of that would be if I traveled at half the speed of light and went out 10 light years and came back, all of us would be dead, or you'd be dead and long gone. And essentially that's an example of what I'm talking about. Your frame of reference, it's like and how put-offs, from we're the observer and we're looking at something going really fast, okay, to the person that's going really fast, everything's the same. They don't feel it. It's kind of like I said, the spaghettyification of the black hole thing. It's what's called an event horizon. Basically, you're changing from one medium to another. It's kind of like if you look at some water in a pot or in a glass or something, and you look at it at the right angle, it reflects, right? You can't see. That's a barrier. It looks like that's an event horizon right there. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's gloom and doom. And essentially, death is the same thing. Death is an event horizon. It's something where, we're afraid of the unknown. I think that's natural.
Well, yeah, so we can kind of segue into ghosts, I guess. Yeah, okay, why not segue into ghosts? Because, the fear of the unknown. Because, when we die, we don't know what typically happens. We have near-death experiences. We do have And that's like the consciousness leaving temporarily and then perhaps coming back with new knowledge, and then we're describing what we see. And there's a lot of comparisons to that. We have, those who have the ability to see mediums, those transmedium beings, I guess, in this, what we call the ultra spectrum. So there's that happening in present time. So I guess to stick to the topic of time travel, and before we look at that, I guess we can look at that ghost video too.
Well, let's talk about,
is that ghost though, like, are ghosts present time, or are they future time, or are they past time? Are they always our past ghosts?
they're the signature. Like I said, there's this record that's just there, and
So we're talking introduction.
So basically, there's the segue to the ghost is so basically part of this essay I wrote for BICS, for Bigelow Institute of Consciousness. I looked at all these books, like this one. This is Egyptian Book of the Dead. Okay, and then I have the Mayan Book of the Dead, and I had the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Now, I was researching so part of archaeology is anthropology. Archaeology is part of anthropology, okay, and anthropology has to do with, and what I did is I looked at these and I noticed that, like, for example, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, they have this what I call reward punishment judgment. Okay, everything's built on what I call dominance culture. Dominance culture, it's not like some people like to blame it on Europeans, but I think it has to do with the agricultural revolution that occurred 10,000 years ago, when essentially before that we were hunter-gatherers and we lived in more egalitarian societies because we depended on each other for survival, to get through the winter. We needed other people to survive. Now, when we developed agriculture, though, then it created social stratification. Basically, you had people who had the product and people that didn't. And as a result, we normalized what this whole thing of have and have nots, and a dominance culture where we don't treat people the same. We base everything on stuff. Right. So the Egyptian Book of the Dead makes sense when you look at it as dominance culture, as opposed to being compassionate to each other, what I call nonviolent communication. So the Egyptian Book of the Dead, they have you die and are reborn every day, and you're judged every time you go to sleep. You're being judged, and then they have a final judgment where Osiris weighs your heart against a feather, and if you're found wanting, your heart's fed to a crocodile god. And so basically, this is the normalizing, what I call this normalizing violence that our culture has. So, I lost my train. I'm sorry, Ryan.
It's okay. It happens to me sometimes, far too many times on this show. Okay.
Can you rein me back in?
So,
what were you asking me about?
Well, the things were popping in my head too, because you were thinking about interconnected and connecting everything together. So there's two things I was wondering is whether or not these interconnected spaces are different places in present time that are just coexistent, or like meaning they, well, what about the multiverse? I guess it could be like, what do you think about the possibility of it there being
So my hypothesis is there's a manifold of events in space-time that's independent from the matter within it. And what we call the Big Bang theory, you know, at what the Big Bang, so-called Big Bang was we were emitted from a jet of a supermassive black hole. It's called the Great Attractor. And so we're in a jet. In a black hole, there's an inner event horizon, which is the accretion disk, but there's an outer event horizon too. And so as you go towards the outer event horizon, that's expanded space-time, and that's the future. As you go towards the inner event horizon, that's the past. And so our universe, like I say, it's kind of like a cell. A cell has a nucleus and an outer membrane. It's alive.
It's still hard for me to grasp this. So like the future exists presently in order for them to come back to this past, like if this is the past that they're coming back to. So that would mean presently we are the past because the future has already happened. But like at what?
Well, I'd rather say the future.
Like
the future's pushing back.
I understand that, but is there a point in this whole construct where, like, okay, look at it this way: like you got pre-recorded television, you pause it, it stores it, and then you press play, okay, and you're watching this show and it's going, but eventually you get to a point where you're live, so you're watching it in real time. You can't fast forward the commercials, but you got to watch it because you're stuck and you can't go any further into the future. So is there that, like, is the future infinite, or is there a cutoff? Like, how does this make sense?
Well, I think there's not a beginning and an end. It's a cyclical thing. It's kind of like, so when you study like Christianity, you know, in the beginning, right? But then you look at the Mayans and the Aztec and the Indians. It's like cyclical, right? Yeah. Okay. For example, I wrote this paper on La Cuna de Aztlan, the cradle of the Aztec civilization, and in that paper, they talk about the point of origin is the point of departure. Essentially, it's a cyclical universe, and they're like that sunstone calendar with all the glyphs on it. That's a 104,000 year calendar.
So then we must have had periods in our past which we were visited by people from the future. So,
or it could be going on right now. I don't see why not. Like the Greys. I think the Greys are, like the alien dudes in this interview that we have, right?
Yeah. So let's play that video right now. This is the area. What is it? The Area 51. Allegedly, the Area 51.
Area 51 alien interview. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's about a minute long. Let's play it to remind everybody what it is, and let's talk about that.
Okay. One last thing. What about morality? What are you basing your morality on? I see. Okay, illuminate us. What happens when we die? Okay, so let me get this straight. There's no death, and we all experience each other's lives, right?
Were you able to hear the audio on that? Did the audio work for you?
Oh yeah, I could hear that fine.
Okay, perfect. So I haven't seen that video in a while, and I forgot about the message in that video. And just realizing that was kind of
It's pretty cool.
kind of
It's just like
you set that up, didn't you? Of course you did. Okay.
That's what we're talking about. I thought
Exactly what we're talking about. So
it's a human construct. You know, it is. It's just like you and me are the same life.
well, see, here's the thing in my research is that video is controversial in the sense that some people think it's animatronic, it's faked, it's hoaxed, and all these other things too. So I mean,
The message.
the message. We'll take the message on point, even if it was staged or hoaxed. The message.
Yeah, as far as I know, it's a cartoon.
Yeah, it's robotic the way that it functions. I've never been able to.
Well, no, the thing blinks and stuff. It looks like it's alive, but it's a cartoon. It's just a good cartoon.
There's also theories of the Greys, or not theories, suggestions that the Greys are androids. So they're actually
it goes towards the hypothesis that the Greys are time travelers from the future. Because if you watch the whole video, that's what he basically says. The guy says, "Where are you from?" And he goes, "Earth." And then he goes, "Wait a minute, you told me you went thousands of light years to get here,
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes, "Offset spatial divergence. To travel in time is to travel in space."
Mm-hmm.
And this is all real stuff. I mean, it's real physics. So the part about you and me being the same life, that's basically what I got to when I looked at the Tibetan Book of the Dead, was that this hypothesis. And essentially, in the Tibetan book, nirvana is a void. There's nothingness. You go to nothingness. Okay, when you reach the Buddhist heaven, basically, and so. The thing that's cool, though, is when you're looking at, they go through all these rituals when the person dies. They each day they do some ritual. Okay. Well, in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, in the third day, the dead person has to deal with what they call karmic delusions. Okay. Now, karma, you know what that is, right? So that's the reward punishment stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, they're saying that's a delusion. So, and before you can cross over to nirvana, you got to deal with your karmic delusions. Okay, so in other words, you got to get rid of all this cultural bullshit, baggage that you're carrying with you into the afterlife. And so, what I think happens is some people don't make it.
Well, then that kind of segues into the whole reincarnation,
reincarnation, and
you're balancing the scales too. I guess in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, or I don't know if it's in the Book of the Dead, but the Egyptian, weighing the heart on the scales.
Well, the Mayan is even more gnarly.
Yeah, I can't remember what do they do.
Well, I can't figure it out. It all looked like gore to me. I tried hard to read it and I couldn't.
See, like if we go back and look in antiquity to all the things that are going on too, and I mean the question is like, did they also theorize that there is potentially future thought and time travel and all these other things, or did something go back and tell them that it exists and they're documenting to tell us that, and then how come we haven't figured it out yet, or have we?
Well, what I'm trying to say is it's a fundamental property of life. Now, I also studied what's called metamaterials.
Okay.
And essentially, our brain is a natural metamaterial. And our thoughts are basically use this seeing to the future. Basically, it's quantum tunneling at the scale of the cell.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a natural phenomena that makes life possible. There's this little molecule called ATP synthase. It's a molecular motor. It takes protons and spins them around, and that's what powers everything. Life, animal, vegetable, even fungi have ATP synthase. And so protons, and that's what I'm doing with my experiment is I'm taking and making little nanobumps out of metal and spinning them around. And I'm measuring this little force. Now think if your cells could harness this force and your brain could harness this force and it could time travel into the future. Why not? Why not? It's just an event horizon. Like I keep saying.
So now we're talking about mental time travel versus physical time travel.
Well, when you dream.
Right.
And there's this book, An Experiment with Time, I recommend you read. And it was written in the 20s, I think. Dunn's the guy's name. And basically it talks about dreams and how your dreams can tell the future. And you can avoid something because you had a dream, a lucid dream.
Okay.
So there's a lot of new physics, I call it. It's all new. We're just scratching the surface.
That's on the citizen side. Now, do you think the government may have solved this and they know how to use it and they're using it, or is it news to them?
I have two hypotheses. One, they stole my idea. Right?
I think a lot can say that.
They're just showing it off to piss me off.
Okay.
Right? Or the other is they don't have a clue what's going on.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. They either know or they don't know, and but being in a position of power, they can't reveal that they don't know because that would show that they're not.
That they're incompetent.
So but at the same time, it creates that mysticism that do they know? So it's.
Well, I err on the side of the latter.
Imagine that they do know. What reasons do you suspect or suppose they have from keeping that from us?
Well, they could be doing it for money, which basically is I view as modern day idolatry, and they're all shall only have one God before you. They're violating the first one. Right? They worship money. And my whole point is you come in naked and go out the same way. You can't take none of that with you.
Yeah, that's true.
So let's have fun while we're here.
Well, see, if time travel does exist and it's weaponized or at least possessed by any government, I mean, they would know how to use it. So are they using it, or are they protecting others from using it so that way they can, create the perfect end game? And then if they're creating the perfect end game, we need to know what is the actual future? Because if you wouldn't go back to the past unless there was something you needed from the past to change the future. There's no need to go back.
Well, my point is there's a pre-signal. You get a pre-signal, okay? Example of this is coronal mass ejection. You know what that is? It's when the sun has when the sun has this thing called a solar flare. It throws. It's followed by a part of the corona of the sun rips off and throws it goes out into space in basically a magnetic loop. and it's called a coronal mass ejection. And it's because it takes a bunch of protons and throws it out into space, and it's like a big wave. It's a gravity wave in the ocean, and it's coming out. Okay. And right now, actually, Earth's getting hit by it. And you guys up in Canada are probably getting it worse than us. So you should be seeing lots of auroras and stuff. So, but in any case, the initial flash from the solar flare takes 7 minutes to get to the Earth. The gravity wave takes 3 days. And it lasts a while, so it's like surf's up right now, and so basically it's a natural phenomenon. It's a type of gravitational diode, and that's what a black hole is, and it's like a common form of energy, I guess.
It's interesting because I don't know when we're supposed to get that solar wave in this part of my region. But
it started on Wednesday. But the point I'm trying to make though is that on the opposite side of the Earth from where the CME is, the day before the CME, the radioactive decay rate of certain radioisotopes changes, and that's an example of a pre-signal,
right?
Okay, so that you can detect this CME the day before it happens because it has this pre-signal where it's creating an expanded space-time, basically pushing out. And so I mean, if it's like that at the stellar scale, why wouldn't it be that way in our cells and everything else? Oh, it's just a type of energy.
Okay.
So, but going back to the getting away from the CME and going back to the ghost.
Yeah.
So we were talking about how sometimes people, or when they die, they don't deal with their karmic delusions, and so they don't make it, right? And they become a ghost. So I was watching this YouTube video, I think top 20, I think it was for 2020 video, and they had this really cool ghost and they had it like streaking orb. And so what I did is I took that streaking orb, and you can hear the sound. The ghost is making a sound that you can hear that's kind of weird.
Is that the one the streaking orb ghost? Is that video?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I do have that one queued up. Let's take a look at that.
Now you hear that weird sound.
Mm-hmm.
So now, when you think of light, electrons emit light, and when they propagate, they use they basically use electromagnetism to propagate. Now, when gravity and when protons propagate, they use what's called phonons. Phonons are sound. Okay, so the CME that comes after the speed of light solar flare, it's traveling at the speed of hypersound, or hypersonic speed, as it heads to the Earth. It's not the speed of light. That's why it takes 3 days. But it's still pretty fast. But it's sound. It's using sound. And you ever seen an acoustic levitator? It's a device. it's got two speakers, and then you can put a piece of
yeah,
styrofoam.
something in the middle of it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's called an acoustic levitator. Basically, it's essentially it's creating artificial gravity because that's what it's using phonons. So that's the thing is people, when they think of gravity, they think of light.
But sound.
But it's sound.
Interesting.
It's actually moving the medium. The medium is actually vibrating, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
that's interesting.
So essentially, when you die, you take your song with you.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, because it's energy, vibrational sound, vibration, frequency. Sound makes sense to me. Never looked at it that way. Okay. Where do you want to go next? We got a few minutes left before we. We could do our last segment if we want. Let's do that now, and then we can kind of wrap it up. So this segment's called "Sorry, Not Sorry," and we do this for every guest.
Okay.
I'm just gonna play a little jingle here.
Stories.
Sorry about that. I cut you off there.
It's okay.
Okay. Here are the rules. I'm going to ask you one question. I'm going to time how long it takes you to answer it. It's a social. It's just a social experiment that I'm doing. Did it all season long. So, with all the knowledge that you have in the world, and science and studies that you've done, what shape is the Earth?
What shape is the Earth?
Shape is the Earth. Yes.
Semi-spherical.
Semi-spherical. Okay, why semi-spherical?
It's a little bit egg-shaped, I guess is the best. Just a little tiny bit. It's up long. Towards the poles, it's kind of stretched out, And that has to do with the gravitational field, too.
So there's no right or wrong answer. The purpose of me asking these questions to all of my guests is try to get a variance of what people think is actually going on something we can't actually measure ourselves, but yet there's a lot of science and study that goes into telling us that the shape of the Earth is a certain way. Giving reference to the flat Earth movement, where they believe that the Earth is flat and not round. But I mean, again, they could be right just as much as we could. But I'm just trying to take credence to set the example that you, as among other people, even though you didn't say it was flat, you're not subscribing to the, the trending spherical globe as we're told as we grow up. So,
well,
was that because science is changing, or times are changing, or something that NASA doesn't know? Tell us.
Do I know something NASA doesn't know? I don't know. It's just my opinion, but I think it's semi-spherical. It's not a perfect sphere.
But they say it is.
Who says it is? Show me the source. I've never read that anywhere before.
Perfectly spherical. You live on a globe? No. Globe Earth?
No, it's spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, so
it's all good. Okay, so why don't you tell everybody you don't really have much of a social media presence, do you?
I'm on LinkedIn.
Find you, and if they wanted to learn more about your study.
I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter.
So we'll tell everybody what your handles are. So if they wanted to find you on LinkedIn, what would they type to find you?
Oh, Micheal E. Boyd.
Okay. What about Twitter?
Twitter, I'm Boyd, BOYD, Micheal, and then E, the @ sign, at Boyd Micheal E. Facebook, I don't know what my Facebook handle is. Micheal E. Boyd, I'm sure.
We'll find there is so your CV is in the description as well. So
yeah, the CV's in the description. That's got all my. Oh, and on the CV, I would explain that there's a little pull down on the right side, and if you do the little pull down, it'll take you to a bigger explanation, and will include links, so you can actually see my papers or my litigation or whatever. So
you mentioned that you have patents too. So what are these patents that you've put out there?
So I have 3 patents on gravitomagnetism. The first one's called a method and device to produce the gravitomagnetic induction mass spin valve or gravitational rectifier. My second one is to apply that for doing surface metrology, using the signals to like measure surfaces on the fly, essentially. And then the third one is and I put a battery and a supercapacitor so that I can store the energy that I'm creating to use it later, trying to make it so you can have keep your computer operating using your hard drive. And then I have a fourth patent applying where I'm taking there's these little nano bumps that are made in this ring around your hard drive in the center. It's called the landing zone, or it's where your head slider is set to park when it's turned off. And essentially when your computer's on and your disk is turning, that's where your head is. Okay. And there's all this free energy there that's not being collected. And so what I do is I take that little thumbprint of all million little nanobumps, I break it up into sectors, and I make a private key out of it. And then I pair it with your public key, like your password, and it makes it so that your data is immutable. Nobody can steal your data unless they have that key that's a physical key located on your hard disk platinum.
There's a use for that.
So that's what I'm applying for right now, my fourth patent.
Awesome.
So
okay. That's good here.
But if you look at if you search on Google patents and you look under Boyd and gravitomagnetism, I'll come up.
Let's do that. Google patents. And, I guess that's the link there. What do you want me to type?
Boyd, B-O-Y-D, comma, gravito, gravito, magnetism. Oh, yeah, you can try it that way, but there you go.
Top
there,
one?
see, no, the one below it. See the one below it?
Right there.
Click on that one.
There you go. Cool.
So go back to that other one that you were. This one. Look at there. Okay, see that on the top right? You see the that little signal there? That's written track. That's what the magnetic signal looks like on your. So what this is looking at, what this is being, that's an image made with a a special atomic force microscope, where they take the tip. There's this little. What an atomic force microscope does is it has a thing called a cantilever. It has this little tip on it, and then there's a laser that points at the back of it. And so what happens is, and then the back of the cantilever is one of those piezoelectric crystals, where they basically apply a voltage to it to make a little signal, a raster like this over. Okay, and so then what happens is it moves down. If there's a atom or something at the surface, it makes a fringe on the laser on the back. So it's like a laser interferometer, and then it can take that laser fringe and make it into a data, essentially. You follow? So it's
storing data with.
So that's how it works. Now, what this magnetic force microscope is, they put a special magnetic material coat at the tip of this thing with this magnetic material. And so when you put this magnetic force microscope over a written track, this is what you see. Now you see the little short bits there on the bottom of the image, right? No, up here, figure 6C. Go to figure 6C. Okay, see those are the little magnetic domain bits on your. That's what data looks like. Then above it, you see the big giant bits. That's called a servo track. And what it is a servo track is where this is like a permanent magnetic pattern written there, and it's like a reference frame. You follow?
Yeah.
So it can basically keep track of where things are on your with your data. But that's what a magnetic force microscope is. Now if we go figure 6B, that's the nano pit.
Yeah.
And then you go below it, 6D. That's the gravitomagnetism signal. See the little the magnetic induction pulses, and then the mass spin valve signals in the middle there.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what I did is this figure 60. What I did here is I wrote a data track like figure 6C above over the magnetic disk where I had this nano pit. Okay, and where the pulse, and then when you look at the disk, so it's like got this pattern on it, like here. When you read it back, the pulses disappear. See that in figure 6C?
Yeah.
Where the pit is. And that's how your hard disk, when you buy your computer hard drive, you have to format it.
All right.
And what it does is it writes those pulses and it maps out any of these regions where these pulses are missing. And then you don't ever write data there. That's essentially what the formatting process is doing. Okay. So, but you can see it shows up.
Right.
The point was I was making this. When I made this little square disc for this job I had back in the 90s, so where I got the idea for this invention.
Fascinating. We actually have a question from one of our members.
Cool.
Jacqueline Dennis asks, what do you think is the most important free energy system the world needs right now?
Love.
That's valid. That's energy. It's an emotion. It's free. Well said. Yeah. All we need is
the one we need the most. Don't you agree?
I do agree. That's probably the best answer that you could get for that. I was not expecting that. All right. Well,
I enjoyed the opportunity. If you got any more questions, feel free. And
yeah, I'm just trying to think here, just to use up the time, because like I'm what is your plan for the future then? So you're focusing on it, on the science and the research, and you're quite involved, and you understand what is going on. And I'm like, I'm paying attention, I'm following. But I mean, what does this mean? Why is this important? Why is this significant? And how, what's the next steps for you and this information?
Yes, I think the future's coming. I'm just kind of riding a wave. That's how I look at it. I'm not being afraid, looking forward to every day, a new challenge. That's I don't know the future, but I
What do you hope the future would be like then? What are you hoping for?
one, build on compassion and everybody's well-being, and not being so judgmental.
No.
I think that there's a lot of polarization because of what I call dominance culture. Because it's kind of like there's this thing we're dealing with. One of the things I did this when I was studying for my anthro class. I was working as an archaeologist, and I deal a lot with native monitors, other from different tribes, like Yoshidishi. Here we have the Eslon, the Ohlone. I've dealt with the Hopi, the Navajo, the Chemehuevi. Basically, there are people that do the same thing I do, but they're working for the tribal government to make sure their archaeological resources aren't damaged. And so I basically interviewed nine of them and asked all of them the same question, and that was, did anyone ever call you a Mexican?
Well,
and all of them but one said yes. And then I asked them, well, how did that make you feel? Well, because you're native. How did that make you feel? And they said, oh, it wasn't a problem. And then I asked them, well, why? And they all had the same answer, that someone in their family, an aunt, an uncle, a grandparent, had been sent to these boarding schools where basically the government went and took their kids away, okay, and sent them for their culture to be erased. And what then happened is they would go back to when they went back to the reservation, or they went back to the tribal community, they would tell their kids not to let anyone know they were a native. And essentially what they were doing is erasing their past. Okay. And so it's like, if you don't have a past, then it's like you don't have a future. Okay. And a lot of these communities are dealing with alcoholism, crime, drug addiction, spousal abuse. And what it is, it's called intergenerational trauma. Okay. And so it's this dominance culture is something that we learn when we're kids. When we're little kids and we're 2 and 3, we watch our parents bicker. And so we develop the same coping mechanisms that we see our parents do. Okay. And so in this intergenerational trauma, it doesn't just affect these indigenous cultures, it affects us too. So like my parents were in the military. My grandpa, he went to the North Pole 48 times and the South Pole 3 times with Admiral Byrd. And when I was growing up, I thought he was my hero when I was growing up. And it wasn't until recently that I found out he wasn't such a nice guy. That basically he had abandoned my grandma and left her with 2 little kids, and she couldn't care for him. So she put my dad and my aunt in the orphanage for 8 years.
Wow.
Okay. And my grandpa, he was adopted. So he's dealing with this, what's called abandonment. Basically, he felt abandoned, and then I'm sure he didn't do it intentionally, but he basically abandoned my grandmother and left her with these 2 kids that she had then had to put him up in a orphanage. And so they carried that so basically it shows this intergenerational trauma. It affects all of us.
Mm-hmm.
And so I learned about this thing that's called nonviolent communication. And basically there's 4 principles. The first is observation. And the key is to do it without any judgment, just to observe. And then how does it make you feel? That's the second one. And the third one is what is your unmet need? Because everybody has the same feelings, okay? Everybody has the same needs. And then the fourth thing is requesting without judgment. And when I say requesting, basically requesting is just 3 magic words: please and thank you. Because that's all we're all doing that, okay? And that's what I call compassion culture.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not about me being better or being the best. It's about sharing. It's about giving, because we naturally give. We have to learn to enjoy violence. If you take 2 kids and little like toddlers and put them in a room together alone, and one of them starts to cry because the mom is gone, the other one will put its arm around him and give it because we're naturally giving.
Mm-hmm.
We naturally want to take care of each other, but we have to learn to enjoy violence. And this is part of this. And maybe there are I don't really think they're aliens. I think they're earthlings. They're earthlings from the past and earthlings from the future, and they're all here and now, because the future is pushing back and the past is pushing forward. So I mean, it's like naturally you look at and I don't think that humans are any special, when we talk about intelligence and things like that. That's like death. It's a construct. It's something that we thought up. I think my cat's intelligent. It's got me trained to empty its poop.
It has, yeah. They have us all trained to do that. Well, that was one hell of an exit, because we've made it. We've made it to the time, and it's been a pleasure talking to you. I remember you messaged me on LinkedIn and you wanted me to review this presentation then, and I just said, well, how about we do it over a podcast, and you followed through with it, and here we are. So thank you so much for your time and
you're welcome.
Brilliant minds towards this. I learned a lot today as well. It was good to the science part for me as an investigator. Like I'm very good at collecting evidence and pieces together and figuring out who needs what and who needs to connect things. But I mean, truth be told, I know very little about everything. Like, I mean, I'm like, you know, like I don't.
You're a generalist.
Yeah.
No, I respect that. I'm
But
a
what I'm
generalist
saying
too.
is I understood how you explain this, so I was able to comprehend that, and I appreciate that, because sometimes I always worry about these science guys with their presentations, because I'm like, oh great, this is when I'm going to feel like an idiot here. But no, you explained that well, and I was getting it, and I really enjoyed that, and that was good for me. And this is my first podcast back from my vacation, so it was nice to be back. So
Where'd you go?
I just went to the next town over just to get out of the way, to, you know, different place, different thoughts, you know. Didn't go far. So we're gonna end that. I'm gonna send you off, and then we're gonna do our after chat, and then yeah. So thank you, Michael, and
Thank you.
Continue to talk to me on LinkedIn if you need anything, and you got you know, admin as well, if there's anything the association can do to help you. And thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna go check out that post that my ghost stuff.
Perfect. I appreciate that. Thanks for supporting my work. All right, guys. So thanks for watching. Keep your eyes in the sky. Heat the world. And we'll see you in the after chat in about 3 minutes. See you soon.
In the afterlife.
That's it, everybody. That is a wrap. That is the end of it all. Thank you for joining me tonight. I look forward to seeing you back next week, where we'll continue to have this conversation deep down into the rabbit hole in which we call the ultra spectrum. Thanks for joining us. I said that already. Oh well, fuck it. Heat the world.
right, everybody. Here we are in the after chat. It looks like it's just me because CC is having trouble with her internet. She just told me like last minute, but she's still trying. So you just got me talking to you. So if you're still here, please put your questions and comments in here. If not, this will be a quick one because my wife was kind enough to order some Ninja Turtle pizza, so I want to hurry up and go down and eat that because nothing. I call it Ninja Turtle. We call it Ninja Turtle pizza because it's like straight up cheese pizza. That's it, the best pizza. Anyway, so let's say hello to everybody that joined into the chat tonight. Brown Beard, hello, sir. Good to see ya. CC, you're here. I know you're still trying. I hope you heard that. Lisa, good to see ya. Hi, Lisa. Alien Girl 111, right on. All right, test is live. Thanks for tuning in. 416 Bitcoin.x. Shalom. Hello. Shalom. Peace. Oh yeah, CC. What the fuck is a nanometer? I had to tell her. It is a billionth of a meter, FYI. I do know some of the science stuff. I did take physics when I was in high school, so I was really good with math. Still am. Let me see who else is here. We have a Retro Roman Doomsday and Simulation channel. Welcome to the channel. It says great show. Hadn't chimed in live chat the show yet. Well, thank you for doing that for the first time. And Jacqueline Dennis, if you're still here, one of our members. Great question to ask at the end of the show when I was trying to fill some time there, and boy, that just turned to a quite a bomb to be dropped there. But that was a lovely way to end that, and that was a perfect way for him to answer that question. I was not expecting that, and I feel bad for not thinking like that, but it's true. We need more love. We need more, and love is a vibration. Love is energy. And it's free. Like, that was like the perfect answer. So thank you, Michael, for that. Let me see if there was any other comments. I don't have my sidekick, CC. You let me down. Your weather let me down. Oh, did you try again? Yeah, because the storm is rolling in. And Jackie says hi. Hi, Jackie. How you doing? Okay, so I was gone for a week. I had a nice little break off. We spent the week this time. I had to play catch up on all the stuff that happened while I was gone, but we played catch up this week. I do not really have anything super planned that I know of, other than we're kind of shifting gears. We're going to be doing some commercials and stuff, and try to expand our reach. We kind of have a plan to that. We're also working on memberships. We're going to try and create a professional membership for our professional partners. That's something we've been discussing recently. To kind of make it easier for our supporters to get more marketing out of the association. So that's something we're working on. Experiencers Anonymous is happening on I think at the end of the month, the 31st. So if you go to our website here, click events, and then go, is it the 31st? Yeah, right here. So click the 31st, and you'll get your Zoom link for Experiencers Anonymous. We did have some conversations about elevating this. We might do some ticketed events or something to kind of raise some money for the organization, where we might have some special guests show up for these Experiencers Anonymous meetings, myself included. So we had some conversations about elevating that and fixing that. What else? CC, I don't know who my guest is next week, so we can't give you a tease for that unless she's in the chat and she wants to tell me. She's doing private. Oh, you're doing private chat? Oh, right there. She says next week's guest on Beyond the Tinfoil Hat is Alex Matsu, Paranormal Investigations. Okay, awesome. Let's take a look. Who's this guy? Alex Matsuo, Paranormal. See how well you pop up on Google here. Paranormal researcher. Right on. Cool. The spooky stuff on Twitter. All right, here's your free marketing. Cool. Alex. Paranormal investigator, researcher, author, seen on haunted hospitals and most terrifying places in America on Travel Channel. Theater nerd. Roller derby human. Awesome. So you're my guest next week. We'll see you next week, and we'll have a conversation. Interesting. Thanks, CC. Uncharted Case Files will be back on Monday, tentatively. I haven't decided what document. I got to figure out if there's a document. I'm sure there's a document to read. So if we go to our evidence database, documented event timeline. I don't know, CC, since you're watching in real time, let's decide which document I'm going to read. Can't remember the order in which I posted these because they're all in time lines. You could get into Clan Lake stuff. Yeah, you could do that. Clan Lake. So there's a couple documents here I don't have all the Clan Lake documents done, but there's enough here to talk about. So, Stacey, if you want to, say we'll talk about the Clan Lake Northwest Territories event, July 19, 1960. There's 2 reports here I can talk about, and then an incident report on Clan Lake as well. But I still have a few documents I need to add. But I mean, this will take up the episode, so why not? So that'll be the topic for Monday. All right, done. She says, perfect. She's in the shadows in the chat. So we've got any questions here? Jacqueline says, can I help by interviewing you again on Connecting Consciousness? Yeah, just I'm more than willing to come back. That was a great private chat, discussion that we had there. I mean, I don't know. Usually when I don't usually do returns. So usually the first episode that I do with anybody, it's a meet and greet. This is what we do, and if you like it, follow. If not, see you later. But there is I do recall that at the end there were we were talking. I was answering questions for experiencers, and it was intimate. And I did enjoy that. So if that's something that you want to do again, maybe if we frame it properly, then we can do that. So just send an email to admin. And someone will help set that up because they know my busy schedule. And of course, I'm always willing to go wherever I'm needed. First come, first serve, because I'm super busy. So get that in there, and we'll try and do that. So thank you, Jacqueline. So I think that's it. All right, guys. I'm super tired, super hungry. There's I gotta. What are we saying here? My members are asking to have me back. Well, all right. Well, then I gotta come back. I have to come back then. If I'm being requested, then I'll go where I'm needed. So set that up, and we'll look, and we'll try to get that happening right away. And I'd be happy to do that. All right, guys. So we'll see you Monday. Have a great weekend. As always, thanks for watching. Keep your eyes in the sky. And, eat the world. All right? Peace.